We'll record it. Okay, so we are recording it. We will try and send that out. So thanks, Sohan, for your message. Again, today's agenda, we're talking about the internship class, and what you need to do in preparation for that. Again, if you have questions, like you guys couldn't see it because I got direct message, but about recording or anything else along the way. Okay, so why do we have an internship? That's a good question. And actually, it's a requirement for a master's degree, any master's degree, to have a capstone project. Often, and historically, that was always done through a thesis. So you did research and you wrote a dissertation for your master's degree. Over the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's evolved that you can do a capstone, which can be a project-based course. And so your internship serves that purpose of a capstone where you bring all the skills together into one place and demonstrate your capability as a data science and business analytics or a health informatics and analytics professional. So we'll come back to that theme of showing all of your skill sets together a little later on. But that's why you have to do an internship. And just the way I think of it is you don't have to do a thesis, you get to do an internship instead. So that's one of the reasons why you synthesize and integrate your skills by doing a internship instead of a thesis. You really are focused on professional mentors and career networking versus just networking inside of the academy. Most of you will, if not all of you, will end up in a corporation or a entity outside of academia. And so we feel this helps you better prepare for that situation. Okay, so there's two internships, and I'm going to talk about the differences and the similarities between the two. There's HIA, so those of you in the health informatics program, you're required, it's kind of a minimum of a mid thesis or mid master's degree program. The DSBA is a final, kind of at the end of your program. So minimum for HIA is 12 hours of completed credits, not 12 hours of enrolled credit, but 12 hours of completed credit. And the same goes for MBA, the DSBA, except it's 21 credit hours. So that's kind of where you can see either halfway through for the health informatics or basically the last semester or next to last semester if you're in DSBA. Every one of these has got a designated mentor or preceptor that's going to really serve as your guide while you're working in this and the project that you're working on. You have to have an approved project proposal for both programs before you can start. And then the other one that's pretty hard or hard and fast rule is you have to work a minimum of 160 hours by the end of the project on the project with your mentor. If you're working full-time, obviously that doesn't take 16 weeks, but it's really a minimum of 10 hours or 10 to 12 to 15 hours a week working on your internship, which is why there are some limitations on whether you can be a TA and an intern at the same time. And basically you can't because you also have classes going on. So with that, I'll go to the next page unless there's no questions yet. Okay, we'll go to the next page. So who typically hires our interns? You can see in health informatics, right? It's mostly healthcare companies, our hospital systems, Novant, Atrium Novant, Ortho Carolina, community health centers, consulting firms, nonprofits, pharmaceutical companies, health insurance companies, purchasing organizations. You got the list there. So it's all mostly in the healthcare world or consulting firms focused on the healthcare world. In the DSBA, it's a little bit broader, everything from your financial services to startup companies, fintech, to there's been transportation technology companies, there's Duke, there's Lowe's, you name it in Charlotte, and basically they've hired our internships. Essentially everyone uses data science and business analytics now. And so you can get hired in a lot of different places. The question you'll need to ask, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is what type of project is it? But you'll work that out with your mentors as you get the opportunity and are hired. So what types of projects are available, and I'm going to split it now, health informatics versus DSBA, because there's a nuanced difference. The health informatics, because it's a midterm or mid-program internship, really managing health data in any form, whether you're doing some reporting, whether you're doing some visualization, whether you're building a database, doing some data quality improvements, any of that is acceptable, but it needs to be managing and dealing with data. Operating procedures, patient data, all of that is an acceptable health informatics and internship. This is different than the DSBA, and you'll note that kind of text to the side, right? Anything utilizing health data is great. You do not have to be advanced visualization or modeling, although it can be. So if you're doing a predictive analysis or doing some statistical regression, that's a great thing, but it's not required in the HIA. And that's different than the data science and business analytics, where you do. Developing advanced visualization analytics or modeling. Really, if you come back and say, I'm building a database, my manager wants me to do a report, I'm going to build a database, I need to do some regional reporting, I'm going to turn that back, or the instructor is going to turn that back and say, that's not sufficient. The reason why we do that is back up to the first part where we said we're going to synthesize and integrate all your skill sets. This is an end of program degree, and you've had applied machine learning, you've taken some of your advanced business analytics, you're taking the elective courses. You need to blend all of that together in order to show that you're integrating all the skill sets that we've taught you. And so we basically reject any kind of database build or simple reporting. So if you're using SQL and nothing else, you're likely going to get rejected. If you're using Python to do, natural language processing, or you're doing it to build some kind of clustering analysis or market segmentation or any of that, that will count. What won't count is just managing and building databases. That's where I found that I push back on most people, is they're not using enough of the skill set that they've learned in their internship. Part of that may be teaching your company what is even possible with a data scientist, because some of the companies you may go work for are not extraordinarily mature in their data science capabilities. And so we really, want you to show off your skill set. Number one, it's going to be better for you because they will realize the skill set and then be able to pay for it. The rest of it is, you really need to show that integration and synthesizing all your skills together. There's some questions you've got in here that, what we'd like to see in the model. I have not got the permission of anybody, and Josh asked me for this, and I had not got the permission of any of our former students and their proposals. I will try and do that and see if I can find a good proposal and set it out there as an example, and then put some commentary on what makes it good and what makes it not so good for those. So that's where it may help you in the future. But really the key is, are you utilizing all the skills that you've learned in the program? In the health informatics, it can be more data based. In the data science one, because you're later in the program and you've taken all the applied machine learning and advanced algorithms, you should be able to do more. All right, so any questions on that before I go on? Because that's where most of the issues come when somebody submits a proposal. All right, so let's go. Where do you find one? Well, everywhere. And what Josh and I say is, this is your responsibility to find an internship as part of your networking and looking. We are not responsible for finding your internship, but we help facilitate and provide opportunities that you then go look and get the job, essentially. So, networking with your peers, half of you are actually working full-time. So your companies are hiring internships, including yourself. So yeah, you can network, and they may be able to recommend you to find one there. The Tuesday sessions at 4 o'clock, right? Every Tuesday we have a different company in. Come to that, network with the presenters, you know, talk to them, say you're interested, follow up with them, that type of thing. Make sure you have a solid resume. Going through the Career Center, getting it reviewed. They have some great points that will help your resume, because they help this all the time. And in today's world, you have to have a LinkedIn profile, and it has to be well done. And so both of those, the Career Center can help out with, your peers can help out with. You can look at mine, you can look at Josh, and look at the people that have the jobs that you want, and look at what their profiles look like. We do have some resources on campus, and this is where we help facilitate. Our newsletter that comes out to you twice a month during the semester has all kinds of jobs in it. The CCI business partners, you're usually invited to their events. There'll be emails that will come from us. There's social media, you know, the Career Center. The Career Center is a wonderful workplace. You've got the career workshops, the fairs. I think there's a career fair for technology and data science coming up next week, I believe. Is that right, Josh? 26th or something like that? 22nd. So
send a link to it in the chat here in a minute. I'm blowing it up the chat with some links for folks right now.
Yep. We'll get I'll get to the question, Sammy, about when do you have to submit in a second. Hire a Niner is also a great place. We try and encourage all of our industry partners to post their jobs there. Some of them would just prefer to send me their links, and then we send it out in the newsletter. So make sure you're looking at both things. So the other things, job sites, LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, don't rely solely on those, because that's, you know, if you're solely just posting on these big job boards, it's tough. Possible, but tough. The networking is actually very important. And then we will have some hackathons. So if you want to do those, you know, it's also a good resume builder if your team happens to win one of the hackathons, but that's one of those things. And I think the next slide, we're going to talk about timing. Oh yeah, oh, sorry, okay. So the first place you go is to your website, and they're here on the thing. Yeah, I'll expand Jackie in a minute. So the DSBA, right, there's manuals, there's things you have to do. The main things, right, got to be part of what you're doing and learning in class. The organization's capacity, willingness to support you, that's great. And need to promote your goals. So you've got to get started with this. And then as you're looking at it, there's a proposal. So every semester we launch a new Google form that basically, it's called Appendix A for the HIA student. It's just the proposal form for the DSBA students. The sites are on the handbook and the internship web pages. You basically fill it out. It's everything from your name, your number, your contact information. Put your UNCC contact information in there, because we will be contacting you through that. Your mentor, who they are, what their title is, and then a little bit about your project proposal. What are your goals? What do you plan to do? What are the techniques you're planning to use? For DSBA, right, 2 weeks ahead of time is just fine, right? So you have so for spring, we will open up the new proposal form at the beginning of October, right? It may not be looked at. So if you submit something, don't necessarily expect it to be looked at right away. If you're submitting October 1st, November 1st, December 1st, before the end of the semester, you'll start getting a response. Hey, yeah, this is an acceptable proposal. Please, Josh will authorize you to enter into the class, because you can't register until your proposal is complete and approved. So you've got to get that done. You've got to do that. You've got to then get the instructor of the course to approve your proposal, and then you register. 2 weeks is kind of the minimum before the start of the term, right? So make sure you're doing that. If you're going to work for a healthcare company, so this applies to HIA students and some DSBA students. There's a lot of companies that have affiliation agreements with the university, which means that there's expectations that you have to do before you can start your internship. There is an entire process to make that happen. It takes about a month. So you have to get some blood testing done. You got to get your vaccination proof of vaccinations done. You've got to get a background check. There's a lot of different things that you have to do before they will allow you to start your internship. And so if you're going to work for a healthcare company, make sure you're more in advance. The instructors do actually respond more in advance for those. Although the DSBA, they'll try and respond, because they've got email alerts that your proposal form has been submitted. They may ask you to redo it, then you go in and edit it and move from there. So there's a lot of paperwork if you work for a healthcare company. Everybody else basically doesn't have that. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to jump into this now or wait till later, the option between the capstone and the internship for the HIA folks.
Yeah. So for the HIA, there has been an internship class and a capstone class. And so 6,400 is the internship, and what's the number, Josh, on the capstone?
6,250.
6,250. It used to be required that you do both. So if you started last year or the year before, you're required to do both. The new catalog starting this fall means you have an or statement in front of them instead of an and statement. And so you can do the internship or the capstone, up to you. But if you want to do that and you started last year or the year before, you'll need to talk to your advisor and potentially switch catalog years, because we've got to get you into the right degree works and all of that. And so yes, we will make it accessible, the recording of that. And so there is a nuance with the HIA. There's not a capstone offered in the DSBA course. So one of the questions came out about the so if you've got to get the position offer, you can't get the position offer like the day classes start, or you're not going to be able to make it by the drop deadline. So you need to be making sure that this will, you get your internship offer for spring. You need to be getting your offer in early December is probably the best case, or an ideal case. Can go a little later than that. For the summer session, if you're thinking about summer, you need to be getting your offer, no later than kind of mid-April, no later than the beginning of May, because that's the 2 weeks out, because summer goes really fast. For the 160 hours, there was a question about the 160 hours over 6 weeks. You can do more than 160 hours, right? The course is set up that you're going to be submitting every couple of weeks on something. And so you either a progress report. At the time, we don't, it's not like we say every 20 hours, submit a progress report. It's just every 2 weeks. So you may work 20 hours, you may work 80 hours in those 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. Just give us the update on the project to the timeline of the course. In the summer, there's both a full summer term, 10-week session, and then there is actually a 5-week session, which is very fast, and you have to be working 40 hours a week in order to get your 160 hours during the summer 2 session. But otherwise, you can spread it out. You can work more. You just can't work less than 160 hours. So one of the questions I asked your mentors at the end of the session is, did you work at least 160 hours on this? And so, the other question is you can't use your day job for your internship. That's correct. What we suggest is you work for a different group within your current organization, if at all possible. If there's a nuance that you want to talk specifically about your organization and here's what it does, when I was in industry, I actually had somebody that was working for me and they did their internship within the same group. What we ended up doing was there was a special project that they did over and above their normal job. And so the person was a business intelligence and worked on our Tableau functions. And what they did some model risk management, right? And we're working on models, which was not part of their normal job description. So we can work it out, but some nuances, you should probably talk to the instructor as you're submitting it, but it is not intended to be part of your current job. Okay. Course registration. So yeah, the other question is, if you really push this late, and you're, pushing up against the add drop, even if you get enrolled, if you don't pay your bill, you will get dropped from the class. And so just make sure that you've got this 2 weeks ahead of time. It's all submitted, everything will be fine. There are always people trying to do things at the last minute though. Okay, here's kind of the present, kind of a timeline, a project plan, get your goals established, what you want to do, send in your proposal through either Appendix A for the HIA or the DSBA Google form. There will be work that we have to do. We need to contact your mentor. We need to do all that. Submit all the homeworks that you're required to, which is a project plan, a bunch of progress reports, and then a final presentation and a final report. And then your mentor has to respond afterwards, and then that's it. If you end up starting early or late, the real question is, can you get 160 hours during the semester in? So if you start, let's say you started an internship in August. Wells Fargo has these externship jobs open now that they want to start in October. You can start in October, we don't care, right? You need to have a project defined and doing that will cover the spring semester, right? And that will be your project, and you'll submit your project plan and project over what you do in the spring. You can keep working for Wells. You can start early, it doesn't matter, but that internship project during the semester that you're enrolled in the course is when you need to have your 160 hours. If you get an internship that's going to start, let's say February 15th, please work with the instructor of the course, the faculty, and say, look, I'm going to start on February 15th, and here's how I'm going to meet all the deliverables of the course and meet my 160 hours. If something goes drastically wrong, reach out to your faculty. Can't get something done, it takes 15 weeks to get data, whatever, reach out to your faculty. There is some flexibility in them. Now there's some implications in that as well that students may not always like, but you can get potentially an incomplete at the end of the course and then finish it up afterwards. You just can't do an internship and then submit it afterwards as a class for credit. You have to do it during the semester. And then if you don't get it done, there's some options for us that involve you paying more money, by the way. So get it done if you can. All right. After your internship, we're going to ask about the mentor's experience. And there's a student evaluation of how you think you did. And I think that's the last, actually, slide. I will stop this and just ask for questions. Now some are coming in. Let me take a minute to look. This presentation is being recorded, and yes, we'll send out a link. We'll post it somewhere. Josh just said that. Okay, so yeah, this Cola, thanks for that question. You can get your internship, or you can get what companies call an internship anytime you want. We're not restricting you to getting an internship or not. The only time for credit, so if you got an internship starting this spring, fine. You want to take it in the summer, that's fine too, as long as you're still working for that company at that time. You would take a project that you're going to be working over the summer, and your project plan and your updates will be over your work over the summer. It should not be on work that was done prior to your enrollment in the course. That's the big nuance. Now you can work for them, that's fine. You just can't work for them in the spring, stop in May, and then think you're going to take the internship course in the summer. It doesn't work that way.
The only other, Doug, I'll throw in also one other complicating factor for students who are on F1 visas. You've got to be in compliance with CPT requirements. So they may not let you start with the company early until you're enrolled in the class. So as part of your academic studies. So that's, you've got the ISSO you've got to negotiate with as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh. That's very important because CPT needs to be done at a particular time and you need to be getting credit for that. So if you're an international student, make sure you're working with ISSO. So Cam asks, can Wells Fargo externship fulfill the requirement? The answer is yes. And you can either do it during the school year or the summer. If you don't know the externship, it's basically a 20-hour-a-week job during your school year and a 40-hour-a-week job during the summer until you graduate. So it just keeps going. You'll just, whichever semester that you're enrolled, that is you're enrolled in the internship course, that's where you'll define the kind of the start and end of a project. You could have been working on it before, but now you're going to say, okay, I'm going to, for my project plan for the internship course, I'm going to define it in this way. And that work will be what's counts. So yes, the Wells Fargo externship program will work because 20 hours a week, you're easily going to fulfill your, during the school year, you'll fulfill your 160 hours, and at 40 hours a week over the summer, you'll fulfill your hours too. So that's not a problem. Okay. Lakshmi asked me directly, what do in the capstone project? So if you're an HIA student and you enroll in 6250 versus an internship, right? And you decide to, that's your or statement for your project that's required. The project is actually given to you. There's a data set that will be brought by the classroom instructors. You'll be working in teams on that. So you don't need to get your own project if you're in HIA 6250. For your internships, it's usually a company project. You're helping define those. It is possible to work on a research project with a faculty here on campus for your internship. Some students have done that. And so you would define with the faculty member, you know, the project and the project plan over that semester. We encourage you to get, you know, to look to obtain projects with a company instead of internally at the academia because it helps to get a job. But, you know, it is an option for you. Okay, so for HIA, will it be more courses if we decide to take the capstone? Josh, help me out. I think the 36 credit hours is required either
Yes.
way. And so
Yes.
if you don't take the capstone and you take the internship, you're going to have to take an extra elective. So the number of courses is the same. You could take both, or it's an or statement, either way, but you're going to end up with the same amount of credit hours.
The faculty wanted to give you more flexibility. Now, again, the capstone course will be it's a project-based class and it'll be brought from industry. You'll be working on a team to solve that problem and essentially serve as a consulting group. The internship gets you embedded in an organization theoretically, and hopefully gives you a chance to build maybe stronger networking opportunities for full-time positions.
Okay, Jackie's asked me privately a question. The detail level of the progress reports and final presentation and final report. In the handbooks, you'll see no confidential information or proprietary information should ever be shared with the instructor. What the instructors need to know in your homework and in your presentation is kind of the high level guidance of what you did and a little bit of the impacts and things that you're having, but we don't need to have numbers. So I often suggest that, and look, we've worked with all the banks in town, and so we know how to work with them to say, yes, this is the appropriate way to do things. You can do what's called obfuscation. So you can rescale the charts on your axis. You can do different things. You don't have to, in fact, you can take the numbers entirely off. But what you can't do is just give me 3 bullets and say, that's all I can tell you. So you have to give the instructors sufficient detail to know that you worked on a data science project and that you were struggling with different things and you're making progress and you've done your first model and you've got to go do it because it's not, not a good enough, or you need to add data or whatever, but you should not be sharing confidential or proprietary data. Some people, you know, if they're building an advanced dashboard, they put these big blocks, right? Make it a PDF and put a big block over the actual numbers, and that's fine. We understand that the nature of confidential information, and you can make sure you obfuscate or hide or use synthetic data or whatever you want to do. And if you have questions on that, just talk to your instructor, whether that's me or whether that's someone else. They can help you work through kind of situations where it's a little sticky. But no confidential information whatsoever in any of the homeworks. The task plan, by the way, how detailed does it need to be? You know, our task list, I asked for a task list and a Gantt chart, right? If it's 10 tasks long or 3 tasks with 4 subtasks in each, that's sufficient, right? And a lot of times it's onboard myself, get access, collect data, right? Do the modeling, build a presentation, right? So there's the project plan that you might learn in KDD is often how a project plan looks, with some a little bit of detail, but not much. You know, and the progress reports are, hey, this failed, that failed. Here's the risks. Here's I completed task 1 and 1.2. I had trouble with task 3, 1.3 and . So there's lots of exemplars out on the website, or on the Canvas course that I have that says, here's what I want. There's both DSBA and HIA, and you'll be able to see one of the differences, and I talk about that in the course, is that HIA, healthcare in general, is generally much more desirable to have a literature review and formal references. So you'll be referencing different papers, different things, or referencing data science, and normal corp or other corporations are not so strict on the research guidelines. And so it's important to still reference stuff that you utilize, but it's not as critical as it is on the HIA side. Okay, I haven't seen any other questions come in. Oh, here's one. Okay, the mentor is generally the person that hires you inside your company. Sometimes it's called a preceptor. The preceptor language is more specific to healthcare, but they serve the same purpose. They're most often your boss inside corporations. So they will provide the guidance and the approvals for you to get access and all type of that. The instructor is the faculty member that's assigned to the course. So for this fall, I am that faculty member, right? And so you have a Canvas course, you have to submit things that I grade, right? And then you end up with your final instructions at the end, and your final report. Next spring, there's potentially a different faculty member that will be the instructor for the course, but your mentor, again, is normally the boss that you get hired by. If you're only dealing with HR, right? Sometimes you're being interviewed by HR for internships at some point, and you need to make this clear. You're going to need to talk to your boss, your mentor, who is not in HR, prior to you actually starting. Otherwise, you will not be able to actually submit the proposal that's required. So that's one of those things that's a little bit of a nuance. And so, yeah, you don't really have the ability to pick either, except by which company you pick and you interview with your boss. The instructor of the course is a faculty member here at UNC Charlotte, and Josh and I decide that. Okay, so registering, you are not able to register for the course at all before you have an internship and you submit a proposal to me on what or to the instructor on what that internship is going to be about. There are times where you have to go back to your company and say, I need to do more work, right? But your companies are generally happy to accommodate you on that. And that's something that you can work out with the instructor.
Doug, the other thing that probably would be good to talk about is the option, well, not necessarily the option, the last option of doing a research project.
Yeah.
How that does or doesn't work.
So I did talk a little bit about that, but you can find a project with a faculty member on campus. Generally, we would ask that you continue to work probably until the last couple weeks before. So if you get to that 2-week deadline and you still have nothing, and this is the last semester that you're expecting to graduate, then you can go talk to a faculty you may have liked or faculty research that you may have find interesting somewhere on campus and see if you can work for them. It's not our #1 option, but it is a possibility to do that and use their research project with the faculty as a data science internship or an HIA internship. So your process, Kiran, is to get the internship with a company, submit a proposal, talk to your mentor, submit a proposal on what you'll be doing through the Google Forms, get the approval by the instructor that says, yes, this is an acceptable internship. Josh or Carl, then the instructor will send to you that, yes, this is an approved internship. If it's an HIA, well, let me talk about the DSBA. Josh will then give you permission to register in DSBA 6400, and you will go, then you can do that, and then you have to pay your bill, and then you're able to stay in the class. If you're an HIA student, or if you a DSBA that work for a healthcare company, so if you get a job at Atrium or Novant or Ortho Carolina, even as a DSBA, you do the same thing. You get the job, you talk to your mentor about what it is, you submit your proposal, and then upon approval, we copy people over in College of Health and Human Services because there's something called an affiliation agreement. They will send you all the requirements on your affiliation agreement, what shots you need, what vaccination demonstration proof you have to provide. You have to go, whether you have to go through a background check or not, whether you have to have insurance. There's this whole list of things that you have to do. Once that's done, right, we will send a note to your preceptor that, hey, all the requirements under the affiliation agreement are done and you can start. You will be able to register in the course before that date, but you cannot start your internship until all the affiliation agreement requirements are done. And that can take up to a month. And so if you're going to work for a healthcare company, make sure you're working this as early as possible.
Doug, I don't know if you got a chance to talk much about just generally the process for F1s, but when you have the conversation about sponsorship and when you hold off on that conversation.
Yeah, so obviously at the internship level, just get a job, get an internship, right? You can work under CPT, right? You may ask them if you want, if they're going to be willing to sponsor you afterwards. I would say probably not necessarily bring it up. If they're going to hire you as an intern, that's fine. They may have requirements. And so for those of you who don't know, F1 visa is an international student applying going to school in the US. They have restricted work requirements. And so CPT curricular practicum training means that basically you can work while you're going to school, but you need to be enrolled in an internship class, essentially. So you'll go and do that, but some companies will hire, and then after you're done, you can work on OPT, which is post-graduation. You have up to 3 years of working under that type of visa. 3 years, right?
3 years total, 1 year pretty much under CPT and the rest.
Okay, there you go. 1 year under CPT and 2 years under OPT.
Roughly.
But you can work a little bit longer before you get your H-1B visa or other visas that give you the right to work in the US on a permanent basis. Some companies will say, you know what, I'm never going to sponsor you, so we'll not hire you. And if they say that in their job description, or they say right to work in the US is a must, they're going to filter you out if you're on a F1 visa. So maybe you shouldn't necessarily put in the time if that's specifically called out. If it's not called out, go ahead and apply, get the internship, because what we find is that they may not necessarily be willing to sponsor, right, up front. That's their general corporate policy. But once you start working with them and they see what you can do in the internship, then your manager and your mentor will go have a discussion with HR on how, we ought to make an exception for this person. So it's really important to get the internship, even if they're willing to give you an internship, but say, hey, I'm not going to sponsor you. That's not an ideal case. But, 50% of the time or more, they'll actually start fighting for you in the end. So work under CPT, be willing to accept it, even if they say, hey, I'm not going to be able to sponsor you, and then show them during the internship why you're invaluable to that company. Josh, anything else you'd put in that?
No, that's exactly it. I mean, again, just demonstrate that value, and the conversations, even when they say no, sometimes that turns to yes, because they know that you can really bring a new set of talents. You really augment the team with that. I put there's a bunch of stuff again in the chat, some links. We've got a resume book that we put out pretty much every semester. A lot of you have taken advantage of it. That's great to see. Please, as Dr. Hague said earlier, please avail yourself of the time with the Career Center to have them review it. Typos really cannot be part of your resume at this point. And you really want to focus on a prospective resume, not just that long laundry list of what you've done, but it really should speak to what you can do as an addition to a particular company. So take some time to craft that. It's always good to personalize resumes as you're applying to different groups if you have the time to do so. And the Career Center can help. There's a whole bunch of workshop sessions on resumes. Allies in, I think this week. There's a bunch of others coming in as well. So take advantage of that, please.
Okay, so I got a comment or a question from Allie about the instructor accepting the internship. And so what happens is you get the internship, and I don't think this has ever failed to be resolved at some point before the start. Sometimes it's a little bit of work and back and forth, but get the job, talk to your mentor, propose it. What's often going to happen is they're going to say, hey, I need to consolidate these 5 databases, and we're going to do a little bit of reporting off of it, and you're going to use SQL, right? And you'll propose that, and then the instructor will say, that's not good enough. Go back to your mentor, say you need to do some predictive modeling, and they may give you some types of modeling that would be appropriate for the group you're in, because they know enough about a sales group or a contact center group or a risk group or whatever group you're on. There's some typical projects that happen. And so the instructor, your faculty member, could suggest those. You'll go back to your mentor, you say, hey, I need to do a little more. This is the requirements of my course. What can we come up with to make the project more meaty? Mentor will go, oh, I didn't know you could even do that. Yeah, why don't you do this? You'll change the proposal. The faculty member will approve it. And then you'll go in there with the right expectations that you will be able to show synthesize all of your skill sets, and not just the first 2 classes of the DSBA program. So yes, it'll work out, Allie. There may be some back and forth between the instructor saying you need to add some more depth to the internship project. But to your point, it just needs to come up with a better project idea, not necessarily that one won't work. I probably go through that process in 25 or 30% of all the projects that get submitted. So if you get that denial, don't feel bad. It's more about going back and making a meatier project, and then we'll work it out. So I don't think we've ever had the company walk away from an intern that they've already hired because they couldn't meet the requirements of the course. Any other questions? Oh, one came in.
No, I
Oh,
put
that was Josh.
a link to the internship fair again. Again, tomorrow we've got Premier Healthcare doing a great presentation, a virtual one on the day in the life of a healthcare data scientist. And then The HIA students, there's a workshop on Thursday that's part of the consortium, Wednesday, sorry. It's part of the consortium with Duke and Chapel Hill. It's actually one of our own faculty talking about some of the data science research, health informatics research they've been doing with some of the wastewater sampling stuff.
Okay. Any other questions? This is your chance to ask questions. Okay, so just remember the best resource for you is the website that is on each of your DSBA and HIA web pages. Under internship program, it walks you through all this, but you just heard a little bit about some of the nuances of that. But with that, it's up in the cloud. We're recording it. We'll stop recording and we'll send that to you when we can.